This is Vermont Edition. I'm Michaela Lafrac. Vermonters are making some pretty creative things this summer. A new 20-part video series celebrates nature through wacky characters and silly music videos. We'll hear from its creator in Middlebury later this hour. We'll also talk with Burlington-based musician Katie Hellman, who explored her Celtic roots to make her latest album. But we're kicking things off today with some world events. Canada and the U.S. are in the midst of negotiating a trade deal ahead of an August 1st deadline. That's when President Trump is threatening to impose a 35% tariff on some Canadian imports.
We haven't really had a lot of luck with Canada. I think Canada could be one where they'll just pay tariffs, not really a negotiation.
Meanwhile, Canadians have not forgotten President Trump's statements earlier this year, calling Canada the 51st state. We heard about this a lot during a special joint broadcast that Vermont Edition did in late April. It was with the CBC's English language call-in program, Radio Noon.
It's not showing, I think, the kind of respect that we have shown with each other.
And I feel really angry at some point because I didn't vote for Trump.
People are going to have to react in a grassroots way and kind of rise above all the bull that's happening out of Washington.
There's also the Trump administration's immigration crackdown, which has heightened fears at border crossings, even for those with full American or Canadian citizenship. This big rift has impacted families and businesses on both sides of the border. Burlington even renamed Church Street Rue Canada for the summer in an effort to draw down tourists. Recently, the CBC's Radio Noon hosted a program in which they asked their listeners, what would it take to get you back to the United States? Here's what some of their callers said.
As much as we love Vermonters, we love Americans, in all good conscience, we can't support the primary administration.
Thank God Canadians have stepped up and have decided to stay put.
Why would I feed a system, even indirectly with my funds, that seems to want to lead to my extinction?
I've got two daughters, one in Ohio, one in Michigan. My husband and I, we're not going down. The entire family, we are not going down.
If you don't go to these states, you're not hurting the administration, you're just hurting the friends.
I have relatives and I have friends who live in the United States, and I'm not going to stop myself from visiting them because of their president.
I talked with Radio Noon host Shawn Appell recently.
Boy, oh boy, we heard from a lot of determined Canadians. So really the answer to that question, what would it take for you to go back, from most people was not going to happen. Not going to happen while Trump is president. It's not going to happen while this approach toward Canada is in place.
Many people have businesses that span the border, have families that span the border. Did you hear from any people who are really grappling with what would happen to their lives if they were to not ever come back to the U.S., or at least during Trump's presidency?
We did speak with someone who actually lives now in Burlington, a former Montrealer, grew up here, moved there, and she said her family now is visiting, so sort of went against the tide of what we were hearing. And so the reason that her family now is visiting, you probably know that Church Street in Burlington renamed itself Canada Street, right, for a few months. And she said that was enough for her family. They had been not visiting her, and then that change happened. There was the ceremony. Suddenly it is Canada Street. And she said that gesture was enough for her family to start visiting her again. But again, that was really a minority. Some people phoned in, I think, politely, we're Canadian, to disagree with her and say, yeah, no, it's a nice gesture, but it's just a gesture. It doesn't change much for me. People were calling in and saying how much time they usually spend in Vermont and how now they are not doing that. I remember one guy saying he lives in the Eastern Township, so right near the border with you guys. And he said, my favorite hamburger is 15 minutes away in the United States. I'm just not going there anymore.
Shawn, we last spoke in April when we co-hosted what I thought was such a impactful and fruitful cross-border conversation. But as you've been saying during this conversation, there were a lot of painful feelings that came up during that hour of radio. In the last 3 months since we last spoke, do you think Canadians' views of the U.S. Have shifted in any way?
I can answer that anecdotally, I think. First of all, I can say that, when we look at the official data, all the statistics about who is crossing the border, there are way fewer people each month. I think since we did the show last week, figures for May came out, and they are way down again in terms of how many Canadians are entering the States. So there's that. I know a couple of people who did sort of decide, okay, I want to go. I love Vermont for whatever reason, so I'm going to go. We heard from a couple of those people on the program who were going anyway. It sounded like those people would have gone no matter what. I don't think that was a softening over the last few months. Just people who thought, this is silly. I'm going to go to the States. But overall, I would say Canadians are feeling pretty committed to this idea. A lot of Canadians of staying away.
Shawn, you just brought up Vermont specifically, and I've been wondering if you have heard anecdotally again, if you've heard a difference in how Canadians view liberal states like Vermont versus redder states that they might also visit frequently, like, say, Florida.
Yeah, for sure. There is a lot of love for Vermont here in Quebec. And basically what we were hearing from people was, look, Vermont, it's not you. It sounds like it's not you, it's me. It's not exactly that. Yeah. It's not you, it's getting to you. It's the fact that I do have to cross that border. And people were saying, I don't have much of a voice in all of this. I don't have a lot of tools at my disposal. Staying away is about the only thing that I can do. So I'm going to do that. So that was in terms of how people feel about Vermont. We do hear also about people who are selling their homes in Florida. There's quite a bit of that.
And Shawn, with all this controversy, have you seen Canadians rallying around a Canadian identity in the way that feels different than it did, say, this time last year?
That's such an interesting question because, I think we grapple with, what is Canadian identity?
Yeah.
But for sure. I mean, a year ago, if you had asked me that question about rallying around Canadian identity, I probably would have just laughed because that's not something that we do very often or talk about very often. There has been so much of that in the last 6 months or so. This feeling of profound insult, I think it sort of started with something like that, and then it turned to that pride, indignation. I'm not sure exactly what to call it, but sort of some combination, some, stew that's made up of all those things.
I am curious if the anti-Trump Canadians have been voicing support, satisfaction, what have you, with the Prime Minister Mark Carney's posture since he was elected earlier this year.
Polls suggest that he is pretty popular, even more than when he was elected. There's a lot of confusion about where all the tariff talk is going to end up. We are watching the United States sign trade deals. Sometimes it seems fairly lopsided deals in favor of the United States with all these other countries and with the EU. And so there is curiosity about how this is going to end up for Canada. Carney was elected sort of promising to stand up for Canada. And so I think people are wondering, well, how is this all going to end up? People want to see a resolution. People are also saying they want to see the best deal for Canada, whatever that means. And so that's what Carney is promising, the best possible deal for Canada.
That was Shawn Appell of the CBC show Radio Noon. Coming up on Vermont Edition, a Burlington musician traces her roots back to Ireland and uses what she learns as the inspiration for her new Celtic folk album. Want to hear what it sounds like? Well, stay with us.
Thanks for listening to Vermont Edition, where support comes from Wendell's Furniture, home of wendellsdeals.com, offering furniture designed for a range of budgets, in stock and ready for summer. wendellsdeals.com. And Vermont Construction's Roofing Division, offering roof installation and repair with free estimates on asphalt and standing seam metal roofs. Now serving all of Vermont and northern New York. More at vtroofing.com.
Welcome back to Vermont Edition. I'm Michaela Lafrac. Sometimes you put on a new music album and you're immediately transported to another time and place. That was the feeling I got when I started listening to The World Below, the debut album from Emerald Groundwater. Here's a song called Curse of the Masha off the album, which came out earlier this summer. Emerald Groundwater is a project by the Burlington-based musician Katie Hellman, who you might recognize from her other bands, like Julius Caesar. Katie joined me recently in the Vermont Edition studio in Colchester to discuss her new music and play us a song. You've been releasing music for many years now with a couple different projects. There's the indie rock band Julius Caesar and another band, The Burning Sun, before this album. What motivated you to start an entirely new project with a pretty different direction?
Each of the projects that I've had so far have felt very much like self-contained little worlds, and had a lot to do with the collaborators who are part of the project. And so this project is the first one that is very explicitly my songwriting and my direction. I was in leadership roles in those other projects, but this is the first time where it's like, okay, this is, no matter who comes and goes in terms of the band, it will continue to be a container for my songwriting. And I think it also is just taking a pretty intentional step towards like where a lot of my passions have been building. It does feel like it feels like a world very different sonically and thematically from the other projects.
And Emerald Groundwater really celebrates folk and Celtic music. What is your personal connection to those traditions?
Yeah, during the pandemic, I began my own ancestral exploration. Looking for meaning making is really important to me. I'm a very spiritual person and I'm very interested in mythology and folklore and different traditions of meaning, systems of meaning making. I'm also an astrologer. Something about having a lineage to turn to that is my own is satisfying in so many ways, because it's like I know the music and I know the singing, especially like singing in that style just feels so natural in my voice in a way that it was such an incredible discovery to find like people who are singing in this way that I could kind of like emulate or help me find my voice. And so I've been really delving into like pre-Christian Celtic Europe, specifically Ireland, where a lot of my family ancestry is from, and just finding it to be like a wellspring of inspiration.
In this digital booklet that accompanies the album, you share these mini history lessons about Celtic mythology and these stories that are really at the core of the album. This is such a dorky question, but what were the like primary sources that you were looking to? Were there books or other albums, other artists that you were drawing from to create this accompanying work?
Yeah. I spend a good amount of time at the UVM library, and my books are always like 3 months late. I'm literally like, they all have a fine on them right now.
Game recognized game. Girl.
Yeah. So, yeah, there's like a big nerd part of all of this, which is like, yeah, doing research and reading. And actually in the back of the booklet, there's like a references page that has a list of like nonfiction books, fiction books, albums, podcasts, and there's some classes that I've been in that I also reference there. So there's been like a lot of independent study, some group work. My journey with my own therapy, I see a depth psychologist, which is like a Jungian psychologist, and we do a lot of dream work and sort of like meaning making through finding symbols, images, stories that help to like process what's going on in the inner world. So that's like a big part of my what I reference in that book too is just like my own personal journey with these explorations. My sun sign is Cancer. So this like the inner world experience is probably the most exciting and important thing to me, just making meaning in the inner world.
And as we said, you also weave in all of these threads from Celtic mythology. I'm wondering if there's a specific story or character of the many that you've researched and connected with that springs to mind right now as something that influenced your music.
Yeah, so I think my main my research is a lot around finding women mythological characters, female mythological characters that hold power, that have influence and impact, or that represent a multidimensionality of what femininity is, from like, the life-giving to the monstrous, and wretched. And so one of the characters, and it's one of the songs on the album called Cailleach. The Cailleach is an Irish and Scottish hag character who is sort of like the bringer of winter. So, here we are in July in Vermont, and she's right around the corner.
She's lurking.
She's lurking, and she's just like a destroyer. Like she just like having this version of femininity that is this kind of like really raw, like brutal, and this like connection to like the natural forces, like the harshness of the natural world feels really helpful in like understanding myself and like what femininity means to me. So yeah, she's been definitely, and also she's just like, I did an interview recently with someone else who studies mythology, and we were talking about the Cailleach together, and she was saying like, yeah, she's not asleep right now. Like usually in the story, it's like she goes to sleep through the spring and the summer, and then like wakes up again in the winter, and then as the winter's ending, she's like just full of rage. She's like, no, like holding on for dear life. So all those March
that feels
days,
relatable. Yeah.
But she's the one who you're just like, oh my God, there's some kind of purpose here to this. But it feels like she's awake right now. Like she's just alive to this moment that we're all like collectively experiencing. And like there's a source of power that I feel from her that I feel like is really important in navigating this time.
So it sounds like you are interested in and in a way reclaiming some of these characters from myths and legends and fairy tales who are not maybe the typical main character or the damsel in distress or the broken woman.
Yeah.
But those female creatures on the edges who have a darkness to them.
Totally. And just like remembering that a lot of the myths that we have that are written down, and I think people like forget this because it's like, it's a myth. Like they were written down by men. Like all that we have from the Greek canon is it's all written down by men. So like even like Pandora, who in the story, she's like the bringer of all the horrible things. She's like, Zeus is like, here's Pandora, and she's going to open her thing and she's going to ruin everything because it's all men before she gets there. She's the first woman. And it's like before that story, Pandora was like an earth goddess. So just the way that like patriarchy impacted and influenced like how we remember what we have of these myths and stories versus like, or like Hera, who becomes like the spiteful, wife, like was also like a goddess of the home and the hearth. And like, yeah, so just the way they get twisted makes me feel very angry and interested to kind of revitalize like who they actually were.
Yeah. I'm glad you brought up that feeling of anger and also power, because this music is it's folk music, it's Celtic. A lot of it feels soothing and gentle to listen to, but there are also very strong elements of rock music in there too, which has been a through line in a lot of your work. Have you found a spiritual element in rock that kind of keeps it as part of your work over the years?
That's such a great question. Yeah, I think I need that kind of the intensity of the performance, especially with a group of people, and especially rock music. I think it just helps me express the intensity of the emotion, whether it's like joy, like ecstatic, or sorrow, grief, anger. It feels like it kind of like puts an exclamation point on it. Or like, I also love that if you are just the dynamics of what you can do with rock music, like it could be a rock song that starts off at, at 2 and ends up at 100. Like it can move between if you have the whole band there to like lift it and bring it back and lift it again. And so I think that I really appreciate the way that rock music allows for that. Like we're not doing one level kind of like all the way through. I think we focus a lot on, and with this album focused a lot on like the dynamics. So yeah, I think that's a cool opportunity that like rock instruments provide. It's like you kick on that, extra layer of distortion, and all of a sudden it's like you're in a thunderstorm or something. So yeah.
You've brought your guitar with you to the studio today and have offered to play a song, an Emerald Groundwater song. Before you do, can you tell us a little about the song that you've decided to play, Trillium?
Yeah. So Trillium's the second song on the album, and it's one of those songs that I feel like as it emerged for me in the songwriting process, it was one of the ones where I was like, whoa, my voice is just like, it feels so at home in this melody and in this song, and has been like a real guiding point for me in terms of like what I want it to feel like when I'm writing my music. Because sometimes I'll write things and it'll like stretch my range, or it'll be a little uncomfortable or something. And I'm like, why am I not just singing songs that like feel like this all the time? Like so open and flowing. And the song is about sort of like my own spin on a telling of the tale of getting lost in the Celtic otherworld, which in the Celtic mythology and like still today in a lot of cultures that are influenced, still have that influence. There's this a world parallel to our own. That's the realm of the fairies. And you have to be, there are a lot of warnings about like how to negotiate between the two worlds, because these aren't inherently benevolent beings. They can be tricksters. They can mess you up. They can offer great abundance and bounty. So there's sort of this like caution and care that goes in. It's about being careful and thoughtful and meticulous in how you relate with the other world. And if you sort of get lost to the beauty of, a misty morning, you may end up sort of like accidentally walking into that realm. So there's a lot of stories about like entering the other world and coming back, and the way time passes when you're in the other world. And so this is like my own version, and it also, like, the song is called Trillium, which is sort of like the way, it's the plant that's sort of like in this song, or it's a plant that I feel like when I'm seeing Trillium in like May.
Yeah, it's a native plant here
yeah,
in Vermont.
It's a part of how I have that transcendent kind of like nature experience where I'm like, whoa, I got to be careful, you know? So, so it's personal in that way. So excited.
I'm excited to listen.
Gather round the firelight, dark is growing near. I traveled from the other side to share my story here. So close I can remember, and yet so long ago. Time it moves in strange ways, in and out it flows like the ocean tide goes. Once there was a warm day, the bright of early May. I walked into the forest, thought I knew the way. The trillium was dancing within the dappled light. The leaves, they rustled softly, the petals glowing white. Oh, I was transfixed by the sight. My mind began to wander, to move away from me. I heard a soft voice calling from out within the trees. They sang like running water, as clear as any bell. My body started dancing, enchanted by the spell. Oh, and under their trance I fell. Came upon a clearing, a grove of apple trees. The branches, they were swaying, though there wasn't any breeze. And here within the clearing was a deep hole in the ground that led me to a stairwell forever winding down, oh, to the palace underground. Here within the palace there lived the fairy queen. She welcomed me with bounty, she taught me how to sing. On the surface was winter white as snow. Many years had passed while I was down below, and I have traveled to sing my song to you, so that you'll remember and you'll know what Yeah.
Thank you. That was beautiful.
Yay.
How do you feel after singing that?
Kind of crazy.
Let it out.
I've been like having this experience with performing lately where I'm like, whoa, after we're done, I need to like kind of take a second to be like, I don't know, just come back to my body, kind of like close up whatever I've opened up, and just like I've been doing a little like just expressing gratitude to my ancestors and whoever's singing along with me, and I'm like, okay, now I have to talk to people. So thanks for coming, and I love you, and I'll see you later, you know? Yeah, it's intense.
Yeah. Should we do a big deep breath?
Yeah, definitely.
I loved the apple trees and the trillium and the dappled light that you mention in your lyrics. It feels very of another world, but also very of Vermont and this place. I'm curious how Vermont plays a role in your music. I mean, we have so much great folk music here, but also just the natural landscape as well.
Totally, yeah. I like got chills when you were just saying that. This place means so much to me. Having access to forest means so much to me. I went to Ireland maybe 3 years ago and was very shocked and kind of just like, the lack of forest that's there, the amount of Europe that generally has been deforested, and like the world. And then like looking at Google Maps, you know, you look at Vermont and you like look up into Canada and it's just like forest. So I feel so grateful to have access to that. I think it's a big part of my my spiritual life, my creative life is spending time in the woods, near water, in water, especially now. And just like there's really unique beauty to this place and how to like honor and like listen to this land and befriend it, and show up for it and express gratitude. Yeah.
And the other musicians who play with Emerald Groundwater, are they from Burlington like you are, from this region? What is that musical community like?
Yeah, everyone is in Burlington except for our fiddle player, Macy, who lives out in Plainfield. It's such an amazing, talented group of players. And I think what's feeling so exciting about this moment is like, it's all kind of coming together. Like the songs are here, the inspiration's here, and this group of players who are like here for the vision and want to be a part of it and are really committed, and that feels super exciting. Multi-instrumentalists, people who are songwriters themselves and have a really good sensibility with music and offer a lot of ideas and bring their own voices. So, and we're just having so much fun. It's like, it's really cute. Like we're all in our 30s except for one of our bandmates is in their 20s, but it's just like to be traveling in your 30s with like a group of friends and you're like sleeping at someone's like random uncle's house or whatever and you're just like having bagels in the morning. It's like, it's so cute and fun to get to do this at this age, especially. It just feels really exciting. Way more like about taking care of ourselves and like having some routines and stuff. So yeah, it's super fun. I'm just really so grateful to all of them. Yeah.
I feel like the stereotype of like traveling in a band in your 20s is, you know, like going out all night, sleeping in, but in your 30s, it's having bagels in the morning with your buds.
With like, with someone's like random family member and like, and just lots of like deep conversation, and it's really awesome. I don't know like how or why else I would do this, like just like travel with a group of friends, do these little like weekend trips. It's a great reason to spend time in that way.
And then lastly, Katie, I know that Emerald Groundwater and this album are fresh out still in many ways. It's only been out for about a month. But do you conceptualize this project as being a one album kind of deal, or do you think it's going to continue into the future?
Yeah, I feel so excited about the future of the project. I am in the process of writing songs. I'm in the process of writing songs. I'm in the process of finding a team to like support me and help me reach a wider audience. I'm just sort of like at a point right now where I'm like, okay, I have over a decade of leading bands, writing songs, planning tours, like managing the project, and feel ready to like, and I kept doing, like you said earlier, just like I kept starting I've continued to start new projects, which doesn't help in that way in terms of like building momentum. But I feel like where I'm at now, I'm like, okay, this is now a really strong beginning point for this new, but I do have all of this other experience to bring to it, and connections and friendships and community. So yeah, looking forward to touring, hopefully a good amount with this project in a way that like feels good for everyone's bodies and nervous systems, and continuing to record and release and hopefully do some other kinds of creative collaborations, like maybe a play or like, there's all these ideas percolating. So yeah, feeling excited for the future of the project.
That was the Burlington-based musician Katie Hellman. Emerald Groundwater released its debut album, The World Below, this summer. We have to take one more quick break here. When we come back, we're going to hear from the creator of a wildly unique new comedic video series about nature. That's in just a minute on Vermont Edition. Stay with us. Welcome back to Vermont Edition. I'm Michaela Lafrac. A new musical comedy video series explores the natural world and our connection to it. It's called Biraland, and it's a 20-part video series created by Bira Vanara. He's a multimedia artist and musician in Middlebury. Biraland features a host of wacky characters, catchy original music, and wild effects, all conceived of and performed by its creator. Biraland was funded in part by Vermont Public's Made Here Fund, which supports a diverse group of filmmakers all across the state. To give you a little taste of Biraland, here is a song from one of the episodes. It's a celebration of legumes.
The little nodules on the root area are filled up with a kind of bacteria. We know those by the name rhizobia. They convert nitrogen into ammonia. That's the form plants needed in order to form chlorophyll to fill the leaves with. And it performs other related achievements, topping the list of most necessary nutrients.
Recently, I connected with Bira Vanara from his home in Middlebury. He began by trying to sum up the show in a few words.
It's a musical comedy about natural history, which I realize it may be misleading. It would work better if I paired it with my initial tagline, which was, it's a Black Mr. Rogers for millennials.
Well, it's certainly something you need to watch to fully understand, and once you do, I bet everybody is going to be hooked. It's like such a joyful show.
Oh, it's very kind.
We believe her domesticated age to be roughly 10,000 years old. Whoa, dude. So she's from dinosaur times?
No, Kai, the dinosaurs died out 65 million years ago.
Oh, right, okay. Whoa, dude, something just occurred to me. What if she's called Squash? Because she squashed out the dinosaurs.
Oh my goodness.
You know, like T-Rex, pterodactyl, velociraptor squash, right?
When did you first start developing these characters? You play all of the characters.
In, I think it was 2019 or around COVID time, I'd already been making a few, like getting my feet wet basically in the video making realm. I'd already been, making music for years. I was doing these little series of stuff, me dancing to my own stuff or washing the dishes with some song I'd written over it and putting it on Instagram. These kind of cascaded into these more long form, like full song videos that I was doing about like staying at home as a stay-at-home dad or, frolicking in the snow, just some of these sort of random arbitrary concepts. it was a very like organic and haphazard process.
Which one is your favorite character to play? My personal favorite was Kai. I thought he was so funny. He's kind of a like stoner dude in a poncho kind of sweater.
Everything is growing, it's so magical. Even when it's snowing, it's still magical.
Kai is the funnest to play for sure. Kai is so unhinged and so he's the hardest for me to keep it together when I am filming and not laughing at myself trying to like his credulity at being so incorrect about everything that he does is I think there's something that for me personally that like is an inherently funny thing. People who are like very confidently wrong about things. And so, yeah, he definitely is. It's funny you say that he's very Vermont because I'm from Sarah and I grew up like skateboarding and surfing. And he's much more based on like surf culture to me than Vermont.
That's a much better description than mine.
Yeah.
Yes.
yeah. He's like such a bro.
But a kindly bro.
Yes, right.
You mentioned that you were a stay-at-home dad. I'm curious how becoming a father changed the type of projects, the type of art you wanted to create.
Being a stay-at-home dad I think it changed some of my ambitions. The work that I was making, it wasn't like I was, going to be a dad and I decided to put out an album of lullabies or something, like it was much more a thing of like working with the restrictions that come from having like, a very limited amount of time and a lot of new responsibilities. And in a lot of ways, having those kind of constraints can in and of itself be a means of being more efficient, actually, because you're limited, but you're still kind of trying to create an output. So you have to do more with less, so to speak. So
Becoming a father didn't necessarily change the art you wanted to make, but it changed how you made it. You mentioned you've been creating things since you were a kid. And I saw in your application to Vermont Public's Made Here Fund that you grew up wanting to be a zoologist. Why?
I think that was just, sort of the thing that I thought would be the thing that I would do if I continued to learn about and be interested in animals. The passion and interest always stayed, but then I, very rapidly kind of realized I was like, oh, I'm more prone to kind of like painting and drawing and stuff and than I was to like, hanging out at a zoo or something.
But as you fell in love with both ecology and the natural world and also making art, did you have any role models in that space? Watching your show, I saw some like Bill Nye wackiness, some, Neil deGrasse Tyson presence. Who did you look up to, if anyone?
I didn't have anybody there. The underpinning, the ethos of the show is basically me finding a way to express my sentiments about our relationship to nature. For me, I see a lot of a ailing health of our species and the world, the planet. And I think that's directly connected to that disconnect from nature.
Bira, one of the things I love watching this show was how you elevate really everyday things in nature, like squirrels and sparrows and corn. And yes. I'm wondering how you picked your subjects. Were these like a lot of things that you were seeing just in your backyard, things you were growing in your garden?
Do you remember those magazines like Ranger Rick?
Yes, loved Ranger Rick.
There was something in that the immediacy of being able to, of having some content that made you, that you could actually relate to, in and have the hopes of connecting to, or at least interfacing with, in the immediate sense. It wasn't like, oh, this is David Attenborough's newest thing on the Galapagos Islands, something where you're never going to go there,
Yeah.
or 99% of the population is
Right.
never
It
going
feels
to go
so
there.
far away.
Right. And so it's fascinating. It's incredible. We need to preserve those places, but we consume that content and then ignore our everyday, the stuff that we're experiencing every day. And I wanted to I wanted to kind of bring that Ranger Rick ethos of like, this is what a raccoon does kind of a thing, into a more accessible space for people. I don't know. I've just seen a dearth of content specifically around these, like the common stuff that we literally just ignore and tromp around on. It's no less fascinating or dynamic than, dolphins or, sea iguanas or whatever. A sparrow fighting with a crow is a little harder to like juice it up, but they are, in my view, no less important. And if anything, kind of more so, because if you can spark someone's curiosity about, a dandelion, that curiosity is going to create a means of valuing that thing, rather than ignoring it or thinking of it as less than. And that dandelion is just as much a part of the natural world as, a narwhal is. And so if we can learn to value these little things through curiosity and experience, then I think it gives us hope of valuing everything as a whole, and really starting to come to a place of greater protection and stewardship of the natural world.
Bira, what are your dreams for this show now that it's out in the world?
When I finished the show, finished making it, one of my neighbors, his kid is really into foraging, like for different types of fungi or edible plants, and learning about the ecology of the area. And I'd noticed this, and I was like, hey, could I send you this show that I just made, and see, you can see if your son is into it. If he's not, like, don't press it on him or whatever. Just see if if it grabs him in any way, and let me know how he responds. I'm just trying to kind of basically get a sense of what the demo would be. And I think he's 11, and he ate it up and watched it's 2.5 hours of material. So he watched like all of the episodes. It was so clear that it spoke to him in this way that I was like, that was really significant. My daughter loves the show and had a sleepover birthday party, and wanted to watch just a couple of episodes with her friends, and they, of their own volition, were like, can we watch all the episodes? So if it can inspire anybody, a young generation or my own, or even the older generations, like if it can spark curiosity about the natural world and reflect on a different way of interfacing with it, I think that would probably be, outside of getting having someone lease the rights to it and shower me with millions of dollars for it, then yeah, that would probably be it.
Well, Bira, it's a joyful and wacky and thoroughly unique watch, and I'm so excited to see where it goes and the audience it finds. Thank you so much for talking to us today about Biraland.
Thank you, Michaela. Really appreciate it.
That was Bira Vanara. Biraland premieres today. Episodes debut each Thursday for 5 weeks on the Vermont Public YouTube channel. All right, that is all we have got for you today. Vermont Edition's managing producer is John Ahrens. Andrea Lorian and Daniela Fierro are our producers. Our intern is Callie Canuxerl, and our theme music is by Myra Flynn. I'm Michaela Lafrac. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll catch up again soon.
These days, there's so much news, it can be hard to keep up with what it all means for you, your family, and your community. The Consider This podcast from NPR features our award-winning journalism. 6 days a week, we bring you a deep dive on a news story and provide the context and analysis that helps you make sense of the news. We get behind the headlines. We get to the truth. Listen to the Consider This podcast from NPR.